right. So last time we talked to you, you went into a little bit about the German occupation of your town. So do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
That's what you want to hear, yes. Well, as I said then, in 1939, from history, there was a pact between the Russians and the Germans to partition Poland. I come from the east part of Poland, the city of Białystok, so this came under the Russia at the time and Soviet Union occupation.
Okay.
So from 1939 to 41, we were occupied by the Russians. Life changed immediately there. First of all, one of my brothers was arrested and sent off to Siberia. Secondly, the school changed the language. You know, Białystok was supposed to be under Belarusia. However, they couldn't find any teachers who knew the language. So they changed into Jewish.
Any teachers who knew what language?
Belarus, the Belarusian language.
Okay, Belarusian language.
Yeah, nobody knew that language.
All right.
And so they changed it to Jewish. And all the subjects were taught in Jewish, but we also had Russian as a foreign language, so to speak.
Okay.
And of course, there was a shortage of everything, and people from the western part of Poland were coming as refugees into the eastern part of Poland. So a lot of students have joined our school and were with us there. And the school opened up like a dormitory, and they lived there. So as youngsters in school, you know, we were very happy about it. New boys, new girls. It was like a country club in school, and we started to learn the Russian songs, but we couldn't learn the Russian language because our professor who taught us was a professor at the university. So he kept on talking and talking, not like in a high school. I was in high school at the time, where you know the teacher asks questions and he was constantly talking. We were supposed to take notes. Of course, we took the notes in Polish because we didn't know Russian yet. So to the Russian language and the Polish alphabetical. And it's a little thing I'll tell you. At the end of the school, we were supposed to have an exam in order to have our certificate that we had finished school. So we said, Mr. Professor, in Russian already, Mr. Professor, none of you speak Russian, I don't think. No. So he says, what is going to be? We don't know the language. How will we pass our exams? He says, in Russian it sounds much different. He says, children, girls, don't worry. Put yourself on me. You know, but in Russian it sounds a little different, you know. He says, положитесь на меня. So lay yourself down on me. So, but however, it wasn't a big deal. We really didn't know the language. However, it wasn't such a big thing that it was hard to pass the exam, let's put it this way. So they were tolerant about it. And we were to have we will call it a prom ball. This is when the war broke, June 21st, 1941. And of course we didn't have our prom. And immediately there were bombardment of our city. At the time, one of my youngest brothers was drafted in the Russian army. And my sister-in-law had a little baby. So coming from home, I went to stay with her so she wouldn't be alone because of the bombardment, she wouldn't be afraid. And the Russians were living also in the same court, and they were saying, citizens, you shouldn't worry, it's nothing, it's just maneuvers. It's nothing, well, and then later, afterwards, my father came and says, it's not maneuvers, it's war. We already have the victims, the city was bombarded, this part of the city is already in fire. So I want you to come and we'll all stay together. So my sister-in-law, the baby, and myself went back to my parents' home. And immediately, of course, when they walked in 1 week, they came into Białystok, the Nazis. And of course, there was an immediate shortage of everything else. It was the army first, the so-called Einsatzgruppen, the first cadres of the Nazi army. And of course, immediately, as I said, the shortage of food. So we were so eager to go and work for the army in order to get some food or have a contact with the non-Jewish population, so we'd exchange some goods for food. So I went with my sister, and sister-in-law started to work with the army. And the army was tolerant. I mean, they weren't very bad. And they gave us food, they gave us bread sometimes and all that. and we walked over, but the walk consisted of cleaning mainly. And about 10 days or 2 weeks thereafter, the army left and the Gestapo came over and took over. And of course, immediately they had directives. The Jews are not allowed to walk on the pavement, they had to walk in the street. No parks, not allowed to sit in the benches in the parks, and a curfew. 8 o'clock, no Jews was allowed to be in the street. And a week later, they had the yellow star back and forth. Anybody caught without it would be shot on the spot, and they did. They also organized a Jewish council, which is called Judenrat, in order to have a liaison between the Jewish population and the German occupants. And through them, all the directives, all the orders came through. It didn't take long, and they decided, and of course, people were going still out to walk, because there was no ghetto yet. But not long after, through the council, they announced that all the Jews were to be settled in a certain part of the city, which normally would hold probably 10, 15,000 people. And Białystok had at the time 50,000 Jews. All the 50,000 were supposed to be settled in this part of the city. My parents' home, including myself, of course, remained within the ghetto. But my sister and my brother were not. So my sister and her family, husband and child, came over also live with us. The parents of my sister also had to come and live with us. My oldest brother was living with his in-laws, and they exchanged homes. You know, the non-Jews that lived within the ghetto changed homes with them. They went out of the ghetto, the house that belonged to my brother. My brother took over their house, and such things happened very often, as they exchanged the homes. The ghetto was built naturally by the Jews. Labor and material was provided by the Jews. And roundups began to take place. The first thing was they took 2,000 Jews and put them in the Jewish synagogue, in the big synagogue, and set it afire. And there was a non-Jew who was trying to make a hole in the wall in order to make it possible for them to escape. He was caught and he too was thrown into...
A non-Jew?
A non-Jew. And he was also thrown into the synagogue and burned. So the synagogue with the 2,000 people had vanished. And in the ghetto, of course, the ghetto was built. This ghetto had 2 entrance exits. Now you could not go out by yourself to go to work. You had to go in groups. And the group was always accompanied by a German with a machine gun, and German Shepherd dogs who were taught to kill. And many people, of course, wanted to go out and did go out. Some of them didn't return because from a whim from the Germans, they were shooting for no good reason at all. Coming back to the ghetto, there was outside a German at the entrance, and inside was a Jewish militiaman. And very often, of course, they were searched at random. 2 things that I had witnessed was that once that a woman was trying to hide some eggs in her underwear, and she was found out. She was beaten and made to drink the eggs. She never got out. Another time, as the man had some oil, and it wasn't Western Mazola oil, it was machine oil, and he made it to drink, but of course he didn't get out either. At one time, our group came back to the ghetto, and I saw 3 people hanging in front of the council house. It was like in the center of the ghetto. And when I inquired what had happened, and they told me that they were working in a plant that was making oil out of sunflower seeds. And they were caught stealing some sunflower seeds, and that was the punishment that they had gotten. In the ghetto itself, roundups took place. Jews were taken out of the ghetto, never to return. So we had Mondays, Wednesdays, and we had the Saturday Jews. They were a little different because they took 2,000 men, and they proclaimed that we have to pay a ransom. The ransom was paid, the men will be freed. Of course, the ransom was paid. Anybody who had anything of value brought it to the Jewish council in order to ransom the men. The ransom was paid. They just were killed the same day outside of the city. And while the people were taken out and rounded up, of course, there was less and less population, so they had cut off some streets. So that's it. Now we had 15 people to begin with in our part. Now we have 25 people. Have come because the streets were taken off. So it was assigned, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was assigned 2 meter for every person. So if it was more, you had to have more people in. and there was tremendous hunger and sickness. And I had walked in a group that was working for a painters forum. The men were doing the painting, and we, the women, were cleaning up, washing the windows, scrubbing the floors, and so forth. At one point, the foreman, a German, came in and asked us who need somebody, does somebody know the Gothic script. I had taken German in school and I knew the Gothic
Did someone, what did he ask?
The Gothic script. This is an old-fashioned German script.
Okay.
It's a different alphabet,
Okay.
So I was afraid to volunteer because you never know with the volunteering. But my older sister who worked with me, she said, what have you to lose? Instead of washing windows, you'll be probably writing some things in an office or something. So she sort of like volunteered me. And there was a Mr. Berger was his name, in case you wouldn't know it. And I went with him to all the places that the firm was painting. Next was the Gestapo, the military and the officers. And I prepared the bills. Now I was sitting in an office already, of course, with the yellow side, the yellow stars back and forth. And my boss was a certain Mr. Hirschman, who came from Tilsit an der Main, this Ostprussia. And he was a real devoted Nazi. It's true that in order to come to the occupied territories, one had to be a member of the Nazi party. But he was a Nazi party because he believed in it. And so I was sitting in the office and handing out very often the paints and the brushes to the men. They were not allowed to come, so through the window I would give it to them. And I was like making the bills ready too. At one point it was a very heavy can and I just couldn't lift it. So I asked one of the painters, a Jew, to come in and lift the can, take out the can. So Mr. Hirschman came in at this moment when the man came in. And he started screaming, how dare you allow the Jews to come? And I was so stupid and naive. I said, but Mr. Hirschman, I'm Jewish too, sitting in the office. It was an incident. And that prolonged. In the meantime, the ghettos, as I said, people were taken out. And we had rumors that are some concentration camps, but no, it will not affect the Jews in Bialystok because we consider ourselves productive Jews. Why? Bialystok was a textile center, and many of the factories remained within the ghetto. And of course the Jews were working those leather factories and textile factories. And people who didn't want to go outside because it was risky. People were out of work and sometimes didn't return. They stayed worked in the factories. They also got a little bit more food while they were working inside. And we had rumors that something is going on in the western part of Poland, but it didn't pay no attention because it didn't occur that Bialystok would be affected by it. However, in November of 1942, some Jews who were living in the little towns and villages surrounding the city smuggled themselves into the ghetto and told us that concentration camps and all the little towns and villages will be made free of Jews. The order was they were being resettled because the front supposedly is coming, but it's not resettlement, it's taking them to annihilation camp. At the time we didn't know about Auschwitz, but we knew of Treblinka and Majdanek, which was enough. And they said, some people were building some hiding places, we call it bunkers, in order to hide themselves when the action, so-called, was taking place. But again, the Bialystok Jews didn't pay too much attention to it. That was November 1942. In February of 1943, the ghetto was closed, and indeed there came an order that Bialystok was to be resettled, deeper supposedly into Germany, away from the border. But then we knew, so my family as well as other families built themselves little bunkers. The bunkers consisted of a sub-cellar.
You built this in your house?
Yes, and a sub-cellar in the house. You prepared some food, some water, and we could, if indeed the action will take place, we'll hide in there. And we did hide in there because it was. People were caught in the streets or found out in the hiding places, and they were taken out. They were also, at the time they approached the Judenrat, the Jewish Council, to provide them with a list of 5,000 Jews that were not able to walk. So those will be the first ones to be resettled. The council refused to provide them with a list like this, and every single one of them was killed, right there in the office. And of course, a new group took over in order to be the liaison between the Germans. And my family too, as I say, built this little bunker, went into the subcellar, and we had, in the morning we had the trucks, they had a special noise making when they came into the ghetto. And we heard the shooting and the crying and the yelling from 9 till 5. After 5 o'clock it was nice and quiet. So for 3 days we didn't go out. And on the 3rd day we decided, the youngsters that were there, including myself, we said we'll go out and see what's going on. So we found out that indeed for them it was a day's walk. From 9 to 5 they walked, and then they returned to their families or to their army or whatever. But we found very many bodies in the streets, especially children. Because, you know, children, when they're hiding, they were crying, thereby revealing the Jews are in hiding. So in order to quiet them down, there was no other way but to just chop them to death. Very often the parents themselves had done it in order to save the others that were there. So bodies and children, elderly bodies in the streets laying around. This kind of action continued for 8 days. And on the 8th day, again, quiet, you know, more streets were taken up, more people were coming into the houses that remained, and you were not allowed to go out yet. But we found out that the people who had worked in the factories were not touched, although they were there for the having, you know, they were not touched, they were sitting in the factories. So my father said, you will not go out to the ghetto anymore. Find you. In order to go to a factory now you had to provide a machine or something in order to go into work there.
You had to provide a machine?
Provide your own machine. If it was a sewing factory, you had to provide your own machine. If it was a kneading factory, your needles and thread, you know. So this will make something that you won't go out to the ghetto. However, while the ghetto was closed in February 1943, Mr. Hirschman passed away. And his wife...
And he was the one you were working with?
Correct.
Writing the bills?
Yes. And his wife came down to liquidate or sell the business. And she knew nothing about what's going on in the business. The only one that knew was I. So she requested from the Jewish employment office to leave me out, or to take him, to allow me to go out of the ghetto, so to help her liquidate it. And as I said, we were reluctant. My father didn't want me to go out. However, being Jewish, we had not much to sell, you know. If she wanted to go out, she demanded. So she herself would come to the ghetto, you know, inside, outside, for standing, I would come from the inside, and I would go with her. Of course, she was on the pavement, I was in the middle of the street, and I went with her from place to place and provided the bills so she could collect them, their money. At that time, they also had a place in Tilsit and Main in North Prussia. So one day, when I finished doing the work, she went with me to the governor of Bialystok, the German, and she was trying to get me a pass to go with her to Tilsit to continue working for her there.
Because they had another factory there?
They
had another factory there?
In Prussia,
okay,
in North Prussia, yeah. And she wanted me to continue doing it, you know. So, of course, I didn't want to go. And I didn't want my parents, and I was so young, personally. And I just said, no, I can't go. This time she didn't insist that I should go with her, because she had already sold the place in Bialystok. She sold it to Mr. Uta Larkey. Did I show you the pictures? I showed it to somebody, yeah. So Mr. Uta Larkey, and he took over the business. And he, of course, approached me, will I be willing to work with him? Again, the same, whether I was willing or not, I had no choice.
Right.
He wanted me to work with him, so I worked with him. And he turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful person. First of all, he came himself again to the ghetto entrance to pick me up. He would walk with me in the street, although he had insignia, he's a Nazi member. He walked with me in the street from the ghetto to his house. It was quite a walk too. But then at that time we all walked, there were no cars.
Right.
And in coming in, he took off the insignia that I'm Jewish. I was sitting in the office without the insignia, being Jewish. Very often I shared the dinner. And
very often what?
Her dinner, the food.
Okay.
We were sitting at a table with him, and eat with him and his wife and his son. And when he would take me back to the ghetto, he would give me something to take home, like even a can of beer for your father, he used to say. And coming to the entrance, he would say to the guard, she had no contact with the outside, she was always inside, she had nothing in the suitcase but some papers that I wanted her to walk so her would be searched. And this is what, and at one point, he had a friend in Tilsit, an elderly woman, and she says, just in case the ghetto were to be liquidated, you'll have a place there. We'll take you to Tilsit and you'll stay with that woman. And she wrote me a little, I think I've talked about it already, she wrote me a little note and she put some saccharin in the little note. She says, I'm sorry, we don't have enough sugar, but I'll send you some saccharin, but you still have sweet when you come to my place. Okay, it didn't come to be because unexpectedly on August of 1943, there was Sundays. I was working on Saturdays. Saturday night the gate was closed. Sunday nobody was to be allowed to go out anymore, and I was stuck in the house. I don't know whether I would go or not, but the fact remains I couldn't go anymore. And I want to tell you that in the ghetto was already an underground working. There was homemade weapons, you know.
Right.
Whatever you could smuggle in or make cocktail, Molotov cocktails, right? And this Mr. Goucher would tell me what's going on at the meetings, at the Nazi meetings. And I in turn would tell it to the leaders of the underground. So they would sometimes be prepared and anticipating what could happen. And when the ghetto was closed, this underground put fires in all corners of the ghetto, enabling some people to escape. There was already a partisan group working in the woods surrounding Białystok. And some people did escape from the ghetto into the woods, joining the partisans. In the ghetto was a very famous bunker, hiding place. It was called the doctor's bunker. There was a building where all the doctors were concentrated, and they had built a bunker. The ghetto was talking about it, that has food and electricity and even a toilet to last a whole year. One of the friends of the family was one of the doctors. And when the ghetto was closed, they came up to the house and talked to my parents and says, listen, she's the youngest and she would have a chance to survive. If you go, separate herself from the family, at least if your bunker is nothing, you'll be caught, at least maybe she'll have a chance to survive in our bunker, which is the doctor's bunker. Well, it's hard to describe the scene that took place at the time. Then my parents decided that it's a good idea and I should go. So I went, and it was the last time that I saw my family. It was 23rd of August 1943.
Did you hear from them after that at all?
No, yes, later on I'll tell you. So I went to the bunker, and indeed it was everything that they were hurt to be. But there also were children, the doctors also had little children, and the children were crying. For a whole week we heard the Germans come. They couldn't find the entrance, but they knew the Jews are hiding there. Although from the underground, the people did come to our bunker and told us what's going on, and also to collect some food or whatever else they could have, because they couldn't have any. But the Germans could not find the entrance to the bunker. But we heard them talking, there are Jews in there, we heard the children crying. For a whole week we heard them outside.
Where was the entrance?
It was hidden under the floor.
Under the floor.
Right.
So they would come into the house but not see it?
Not to the house, it was in a hallway.
Okay.
And under the floor in the hallway was a clapped door. Well, that's some
false floor.
It's in German when I speak about this time. And some wooden plats that you pick off. And it had to be opened from the inside. Couldn't open from the outside. And we heard them say after the week, we heard them say that, well, they don't come out, we can't find the entrance to them. We shall throw a firebomb and let them burn to death. So of course we decided to give ourselves up. And we went out. We went out, we were marched off. So it was already a week after the ghetto was liquidated. And we came to a plot not far from the Jewish hospital, and there were already people who were found out, just like we were found out. And here I met my father. And my father told me that the family bunker was discovered on the third day. And they were marching towards the railroad station. And my oldest brother was trying to escape, and he was shot. My father succeeded to hide behind the door. But when the group went by, they found him, and they brought him to that place. I was sitting there overnight on the open field, and the heat was August. And in the morning, they tried to call out different occupations, carpenters, plumbers, and doctors. I went up to the assessment, and I asked whether I can take my father with me. I didn't have to do it. I could have taken him just like that. But I don't know what it was, the stupid, or the fear that he might find out, he will all be shot. I don't know, but I went up to the Gestapo man and asked him whether I can take my father with me, of course. He smacked me in the face, kicked me in the stomach, and I was never to see my father again. Because I walked over the group of the doctors, and he walked over the carpenters or whatever. We were marched to the railway station. There were already the cattle cars ready for us, about 300 people to a cart. And we were given a pail for our physiological need. We still had other things that we had taken out from the bunkers when we were found, when we gave up. So we had some food. But it was so tightly packed that you couldn't even sit down. We had to stand all the time. And people were trying to come closer and closer to this little window, for the air. And, I myself, and many like me, we stopped functioning as human beings. We didn't have to go to the pail, we didn't have to drink, we didn't have to eat, nothing. We just, no any need that a normal person would need during the day. And when the door were closed up, of course, surrounded by Lithuanians, Ukrainians, and Germans, machine guns on top. And while we were traveling, we heard some shots, people escaping from the little windows. Very few succeeded to join the partisans, many were killed while trying to escape. And we were traveling like this probably for 3 days, but we lost count of time. And we came to a stop, and we heard the noise that some trains were being taken off the train. Some cars were taken off the train. And after they were taken off, we continued, and then we saw we just passed the station of Malkin, which Treblinka was located in. Of course, we assumed rightly that the people that were taken off were probably taken to Treblinka. And again, we traveled another 24, 36 hours, and we came again to a stop. The doors were open, and all the time we had a shooting, constantly, because people were trying to escape. And we came to a stop, and the doors were open, and we had to come out, and we already had some bodies in our car. We had to take them out and put them on the tracks, and we marched in the camp of Majdanek. And we stayed there under the open sky, of course. And there, a young man who lived with us in the ghetto. He was himself from another town, but he lived with us in the ghetto.
He lived with the doctors?
No,
in the ghetto, or
no, the whole
family?
group that came.
Or just from in the ghetto?
Yeah, in the ghetto. No, he was somebody that joined our house because his house was taken out. So he knew me, let's put it this way. So he crawled on all four through under the fences, and he came up to me. He says, "Do anything in the world and go out of Treblinka, because nobody is going to."
Treblinka or Majdanek?
Majdanek.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah, go out of Majdanek because nobody is going to survive Majdanek. So I said, "What shall I do? How can I get out of here?" I said, "Whatever they'll call, seamstresses, teachers, painters, whatever they call, go. Don't stay here." So I decided, okay, I'll go with the doctors, I suppose, if they call them out. In the meantime, a group of salesmen came riding on horses. And we also had children, the women, the doctors' children, the women kept the children. And one of them grabbed a child from the mother's arm, shot it in the air, and shot it. So they applauded, his cameras applauded to his deed. We stayed like this for 24 hours, a day and a night and the other day. And then again, they started to call out different occupations. So of course I went with a group of the doctors. We went out, going to the trains, they were surgicals. And if you had a ring on your finger or watch, anything, they took it away naturally. But if your ring didn't come off fast enough, the finger came off right with a ring. And we were put again into cattle cars, and we were traveling a day or so. And we came to another stop. It was another camp, and everything had to be very fast. You go out and fast out of the cars. Okay, we had nothing with us, clothes that we had on us, so we didn't have nothing to carry. And we came onto the camp, it was Camp Brigian. It turned out that it was a forced labor camp. And here, of course, we came to the Appel field, 5 people deep in a row, and we were counted and assigned to barracks. In the barracks, we were not allowed to go in there before evening. It was dark, we were allowed to go into the barracks. The barracks were like a long, long hall, in the middle of which was a so-called stove that was never lit, made of red bricks. On both sides of the stove were 3-story high bunks. Every bunk had a sack of straw and an army blanket. 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, it was still dark, just the stars were in the sky. And by rotation, we had to go and bring the so-called breakfast, which was black, dark, bitter water, the so-called coffee. And the Appel, and we were counted again, also 5 people deep, we were counted. And this, the first morning, we were assigned, of course we were separated from the men were separated from the women. And here we were assigned to go to work. I was assigned to work in a barrack, which was sewing on buttons to the uniforms of the soldiers that were on the Russian front, we assume, because the uniforms were white, so this camouflage for the Siberian snows. And we were assigned a certain amount of buttons that you were supposed to sew on, but we didn't know how many. So 12 o'clock noon, a foreman, a civilian, would come in and count evidently whether we fulfilled the quota up till 12 o'clock. We walked like this till 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock again, rush, fast, to run fast, because otherwise you were beaten on the way if you didn't. So I had to run fast into the Appel place, again 5 people deep. And here people who did not fulfill their quota were being lashed. And of course many of them didn't get up after, depending how short they were to the quota. And they were taken out into the wood outside where they were buried, because Brigian did not have any gas chambers, had no crematories. It was just a forced labor camp. And here, of course, as I say, the only thing that was just from terrible hunger, and with it came different sicknesses. So the commander of the camp decided to build a hospital. And the hospital consisted of 3 departments. The first department was for people who were just tired and weak and would stay for 2 weeks or so and go back to work. The second one was for people who had contagious sicknesses, and there were plenty of it. There was pleuritis, there was typhus, there was flag fever, you name it, we had it. And I had it too, and I survived. The first victim of those sicknesses was my so-called adopted mother, the doctor's wife. She had typhus. And I sat with her and her some water, and she was the first one to die, but she died a normal death. She died of sicknesses. She was taken out and buried into the woods with many others that had died. The third department was for people who were short of death. They were swollen from hunger, couldn't move, couldn't talk, and were sick, of course. So from there, of course, they were taken out into the woods where they were buried. There was no medicine, there was nothing. They were doctors, but they had no medicine. Now, from time to time, we were taken to the showers to change our clothes. And of course, you had to grab anything that came along. And again, it had to be in a fast tempo. Grab from the table a shirt or a skirt or one shoe, 2 right shoes or 2 right shoes, 2 left shoes, whatever. And then outside, we would change with the other inmates, you know. And here's a little incident I want to tell you. We were not allowed in the ghetto to have fur. So I had to walk outside of the ghetto. So I had a fur coat that I liked so very much, my uniform coat. It had yellow gray fur color and cuffs. And in order to be able to wear it in the winter, we covered it with some black material. And somehow that coat landed in prison. And one of the inmates received that coat. And I went up to her and I said, change it with me. And she was a classmate of mine. We went to school together. And I said to her, change the coat. You know this is my coat. You know that. You recognize this is my coat. And I'll give you the coat that I had received. I want to have my coat. She says, no. And she didn't give it to me. But that was the instinct of survival, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so this is what went on in prison. And after the lashes that I was telling you, there was again counting. And we received our so-called dinner. So of course, out of rotation, everyone, a few girls would go and bring a big kettle of so-called soup from the kitchen. And if you were lucky enough to get it from the bottom of the kettle, you had some kind of an unidentified piece of skin from some of the vegetables. And then you also received a loaf of bread, a pound bread, a kilogram, actually 2 pounds loaf of bread. It was always green from mold and stale naturally for 4 people. And again, we were sitting outside until it was dark, and then you were allowed to go into the barracks. Now, what do you do with a piece of bread so nobody will steal it from you? Or you will try to steal it, you'll feel it and get up. So you either put it in your bosom or as a pillow under your head. However, we had company in the barracks. There were big rats, and we felt them crawling on our body. And you'd sometimes get up in the morning, and the bread was gone, just little crumbs were left because the rats had eaten it up. Sickness was spreading very bad, and people were dying a lot. Although there were the doctors, as I say, there was a clinic, so to speak, but there was no medication for that. It went on like this, where people were decimated because of the different sicknesses. And at one point, this Christmas of 1943, there was a proclamation that a town near the drive through the camp called Radom is giving a Christmas party for the Jewish children in the camp. And the mothers were so naive, just as I was stupid at the same time, and they believed it, that the Germans are giving a Christmas party for the Jewish children in camp. They handed over the children to the trucks, but the children never returned.
Do you know where they went? Where, like?
They went to Radom.
To Radom.
Yes, and but they were probably killed or shot on the way, and never came back. And in February of 1944, Goucher was to be liquidated. You see, the eastern part of Poland was about to be freed by this Russian army, by the Soviet Union, and we were to travel deeper into Germany. So there we were loaded onto cattle cars, and we were traveling, and this is when we came to Auschwitz-Birkenau. Of course, the first thing we saw is this big sign, Arbeit macht frei, and the first time we encountered the uniforms of the inmates, you know, the gray and blue striped uniforms. And in Auschwitz, of course, there were not only Jews at the time, and every section of the so-called the people that were not Nazis, anti-Nazis, had different insignias. So political prisoners had red triangles, homosexuals had green triangles, and so it went. And of course the Jews had the yellow star with the Jude on it. So again, we came to the gates were open, the assessment with the machine guns and the dogs, and again, first, you were on the run, first on the run. We were separated again from the men, we were taken into a big, bare hall. Here we were ordered to undress ourselves, and all the body hair was removed from us by men. And here I still had a picture of my family, a little tiny picture. And I figured I'll put it in the shoes. If I'll come out from the showers, then I'll have the picture. And if the showers turn out to be a guest chambers, then it wouldn't make any difference. So that's what I did. I took off the shoe, put in the picture in my shoes, go naked, and we were given a piece of soap, and it was with the initials RIF, which we interpreted as raw Yiddish fat, pure Jewish fat. And we went into, it turned out to be showers. The whole transport from Blizhny went into camp, went into quarantine camp. We marched to camp. No selections were taking place, and we all went into camp. And the men went to their field, and we went to the women's field. We all one separate only by this high voltage wires. And on the field there was a tower in the corner, and there was a soldier with a machine gun. And it was very easy to commit suicide actually with Auschwitz. You either went to the high voltage wirings, which were electrocuted, or you came close to the tower and you would shoot. I was in Auschwitz from 1944 till the liquidation, and I only witnessed one suicide.
You only witnessed
one suicide. A girl who went onto the wirings and she was electrocuted. And here, as I said, it was a quarantine, so we were not assigned to walk. The barracks were just the same as I described before. The food was just the same as I described before. And in addition, selections were taking place. Morning or evening, depends when famous Dr. Mengele would come to his entourage and perform the selections. You'll ask me if I ever saw Mengele. I never saw him. Because, you know, we had the ostrich politic, not to look at him, he won't look at you. So everybody would try to be the last one, the 15-year-old, maybe this will help. At one point, a friend of mine that I befriended in the camp, she says she's sick, she cannot take it anymore. She wants to go on the Revier. Revier was a hospital barrack. Nobody returns from the Revier. We tried to persuade her, why do you have to go? Don't go, stay here, you'll see, you'll get used to it. Some things will come, maybe you'll be liberated, the front is coming. No, she wants to go. And she did. She went to the Revier, and 2 days later, somehow she smuggled out a piece of paper to me, and she says, look for me in the smoke of the chimney. And that was it. I never saw her. The people they were taking out during the selections with Mengele came, were taken to a special barrack, it was 10C we called it. And through the night, of course, we would hear the screaming and the yelling and the crying. And of course, in the morning, the smell of burning flesh and bones was all over the camp. At one point, the doctor that sort of adopted me was a dermatologist. And you know, the assessment are always, well, very many of them were very severe venereal diseases. And he treated them. Because of which he would have not a piece of bread, or another piece of another soup, or could get another piece of cloth. Auschwitz is located, as you know, in the mountains, and it was very, very cold. It was winter time. So he risked his life and threw over a pair of men's slacks over the fence for me, so I can get some clothing, you know. And I did, of course, he was risking his life by doing it. He was also sometimes put a little bit of soup under the wirings I would get, or throw over a piece of bread, also by risking his life. And of course I was risking by getting it, but I was doing it for myself.
Right.
At one point we noticed that the men aren't there. We were on appeal, they had appealed to us at the same time. They weren't there. Of course we assumed that they were taken to the gas chambers, where else? Not long after that, there was a call that everybody has to come out into the center of the field. Auschwitz was built like the rows of barracks, in the middle was a big field. Have you ever been to Auschwitz?
I've seen
So this is how it was, on both sides of the barracks. In the middle was a big field. Everybody was to come into the big field to be registered. The only thing that we still had at the time was our name. Here it was taken away from us too. We became numbers.
What's your number?
We became numbers. A for Auschwitz. 15250 was my number. You notice that it's not a straight line. You see, it's just with points.
Yeah.
And every point was a needle stuck in your skin, and this is what it was. So now we were addressed by the numbers, called by the numbers, and so forth. Not long after that, there was a selection taking place, naked, in a big hall, bare hall. And Dr. Mengele came, and he took out just one woman. He took her out. Of course, we knew that we'll never see her again. It's also a story to come later. And we, after that selection, we were assigned to go to another camp. It was called Frauen-Konzentrationslager, it means women concentration camp. And there again we were assigned to the barracks and assigned to walk. I was the block eldest here. In the quarantine, the block eldest was a Jewish girl who lost her family. She came from Warsaw, she came much earlier, but she became a block eldest.
Oh, what? What is that?
She was controlling, so to speak, the
Okay.
inmates in her barrack.
Okay, so you're kind of responsible for.
Well, not responsible, mean. That's what she's rather. But she had some privileges. She had some more soup, and she was commanding with us, you know. And she was Jewish too. And it was very, very mean person. She was constant screaming at us. My family went to the chambers, and I'll send you all of it to the chambers. So much so that at one point she had a branch, and she was beating us with this branch while we stayed in their pail. An SS lady came by and took away the branch from her and threw it over the roof. She was very, very mean. And she was Jewish. Well, you had about a couple. You had the 10 couples.
Yeah,
Those were inmates who were appointed by the assessment to do the dirty work. And sometimes you really couldn't blame them for doing what they did, because if they wouldn't do it to us, they would be shot. But this one did it because she did it, you know. There was no capo at the time.
Right.
Okay, so we're already in Frauen-Konzentrationslager. I was assigned to a group that goes out from the camp into the field to dig ditches for pipes in there. As we were going out, of course, accompanied by the assessment, machine gun, and the German shepherds who were taught to kill. At the exit entrance of the camp, there was a group of inmates who were singing, accompanying us with songs, German songs, and we were marched out. Again, everything was fast, had to go. And at one point, I was walking there, and I said, just to my inmates, I have to stop for a minute. I feel that I cannot go on digging. She says, don't sit down. The minute you sit down, the dog will come after. You know what the dogs are taught to do. And you know, I didn't sit down yet, but I was about to. And the dog did come and tore one of my shoes off. Again, I was destined to survive. Didn't touch my foot, just took one of my shoes off. Coming back into the camp, of course, I was in the last row because I had one shoe on, one shoe off, so I was slowly walking, so I was in the last row. And again, inmates were greeting us when we came in, and I was, so to speak, drafted to perform another job after walking the whole day there. And the job,
is that because you were in the last?
Because I was the last one, so they caught me. With more people, just I wasn't the only one.
Right.
And with the dish that we had that we drank from and ate from and washed ourselves in, with that dish I had to clean the toilets into barrels that were driven by also inmates, and we walked like this the whole night through. Well, it's hard to describe you the way we looked and the way we smelled after that job. I came to the barrack and I asked my barrack eldest, which was a Polish girl from Warsaw, and I asked her whether I can remain in the barrack because I have to wash myself at least. And rest maybe a few minutes. She answered, she slapped me in the face, and immediately I lost 4 teeth. But she says the only alternative you have is if you can't go to work, you can't stay in the barrack, you can go in the review. I said, I'll go to the review. I felt that I couldn't go on working. So we said goodbye to all the inmates, and they knew that we'll never see each other again, because going to the review was just like a death sentence. But I went, and again, I was meant to survive. So I came there, and there was a Hungarian inmate, a doctor. She took me sort of under her wing, and she says, okay, you'll stay here, I'll give you a little bit of soup and a piece of bread, you'll have time to rest, you'll be okay. I stayed in that review a whole week. The rumors came on that Bengalis to come and perform selections. And of course the first ones to go would be the ones who are the longest. She says, you'll have to leave. So she gave me a order to go to the warehouse and get some clothes. So I went, and this is for the first time that I received already the uniform of the concentration camp inmates, and I got a pair of very good shoes, which was very important because you spend so much time on your feet. And I was assigned to work in another field. It was called Zigeunerlager, gypsy camp. Why gypsy camp? A whole transport of gypsies came, stayed overnight, and the whole transport went to the crematorium. So we called them a gypsy camp. Here in a big barrack, on tables, we were sitting and making sort of baskets from straps of rubber, and making little baskets. And I came in already, all the good seats far away from the door were already occupied. So I was sitting next to the door, and my fingers were getting blue, and I couldn't make those baskets. So the forelady, which was an inmate, a Jewish inmate, and she came up, so she cannot do it. She says, you know, I'll take you up higher. And she did. She took me up higher, closer, where sometimes she would lead the stove. And at one point, she organized potatoes, and she baked those potatoes in the stove. And you know, after that, she gave me the hot, salted water to drink. I have drank many champagne since then, and beautiful wines. Nothing tasted as good as this salted hot water from the potatoes. Another thing that was unusual in Auschwitz was the four ladies were invited to go to a concert to Auschwitz proper. All of this, I'm telling you, was in Birkenau.
Right.
To go to Auschwitz proper. That the lorries, which means the trucks, would come and take them to Auschwitz. These four ladies, I don't know
what would they go there for?
For a concert.
Okay.
Performed by the inmates, of course. You know, at that time, all the famous Jewish musicians were in Auschwitz. So she I don't know whether I had reminded her of a sister or a child, I don't know, but she sort of took to me and says, I want you to go with me to that concert. So, well, she says, you know, if people will see you, they'll die from fear that there's a skeleton walking. Because I had no flesh on me, it was bones covered with skin and no hair. And, you know, so she somehow organized some red paper to put some color on my cheeks and a scarf on my head and a big coat to make me appear bigger. And I went. The trucks came, you know, and we went to Auschwitz, and indeed I was at a concert, and the musicians were taken to the chambers, to the crematorium the day after, and perished. From time to time we were taken to a Entlausung, which means to get rid of the lies, not for our benefit, but the benefit of the Germans. They're afraid of the lies that carry on these different sicknesses. But going to the Entlausung, where we went to the showers and change clothes, many times you did not go to the showers. It was guest chambers, and many people perished by going to the so-called Entlausung. This kind of life prolonged to January 1945. In January 18 of 1945, there was a proclamation made that Auschwitz was to be liquidated. Whoever wants to march out of Auschwitz is welcome to do it. And whoever wants to remain in Auschwitz can also do so. So, you know, the rumors were that the minute the Germans will march out, they will destroy Auschwitz together with the inmates that were left there. So whoever really could drag their feet, you know, decided to go on that so-called death march. 60% of the people in the death march perished in the march. I survived. And we were marching, and don't ask me how long, because I don't know. I had a little satisfaction while marching. These same block elders and barrack elders that knocked my teeth out, you know. She was, as I said, from Poland, and she received packages. And she kept a store or whatever it was. She somehow organized a two-wheeler, and she was pushing this little hand wagon. And of all the people in the march, she approaches me to help her push the thing. And I said, you do it yourself. Get a little satisfaction in that. People were killed because they were going on the side for their physiological needs, or couldn't keep up with the march. They were killed. And we had no food, no nothing. I don't know how long it took. We marched, and we came to a Camp Rosen. And this camp just collapsed on the ground and was laying there. including myself, didn't have the strength even to stand up and get the piece of bread that was given to us. We were so exhausted.
Was that the first stop you had?
That was the
in
first stop
Rosen?
from Auschwitz to Gross-Rosen.
Gross-Rosen.
And here, again, a selection took place, and people who were taken, I mean, to remain in Gross-Rosen, some ought to go farther into Germany. And I was the one that was going farther into Germany. From here, we were already put onto cattle carts, open ones, not, the open carts.
Mm-hmm.
And there was snow already there, the cars were plenty of snow. And we went from a railroad station, and there were civilians, Germans, who were also waiting for the trains, and they saw us. Some of them even tried to throw up an apple or a piece of bread towards us, and they claimed they didn't know what was going on, But they saw us. And we were loaded onto this thing. Some of them couldn't even go up, so to help each other to go up on that cart, and we were traveling a little bit, and we came to Camp Ravensbrück. Ravensbrück was an annihilation camp, just like Auschwitz. They had gas chambers, they had crematoria, and so forth. When we came there were already people from different camps. So the bunks were to be shared, 2 and 3 to a bunk. What shall I do with my precious shoes? That nobody would steal it from me. So I said, I'll put it under my head as a pillow. Somebody will try to get it, I'll wake up. But evidently I was so exhausted and so tired that I didn't feel it. I got up in the morning and my shoes were gone. I was left with a little shoe that only 3/4 of my foot hardly went into it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Inuits tell me that there is a sales lady who's handing out those wooden shoes. So if you go there, she'll give you a pair of wooden shoes, at least if whole foot will go into it. That was already March, probably. And so I went to her and I asked her, she looked at me, she said, you have shoes? Slapped me, kicked me, no. You get the shoes that you had. I did not have to come barefoot in order to get us wooden shoes. And here in Auschwitz, in Ravensbrück, we just didn't walk. The daily routine was, as I described in Auschwitz, the same thing, appel in the morning, appel in the evening, selections during those appels. But we didn't walk, we were not assigned to walk. Mm-hmm. And the gas chambers constantly walked. I want to go back for a minute.
Okay.
Because in August of 1944, there was an uprising in Auschwitz, and I think I want to mention it here. The people who walked at the crematoria, the so-called Sonderkommando, mm-hmm. had destroyed 2 crematoria. 7 of them escaped.
They destroyed the
2 crematoria. Yeah. There were 4 or 5, 2 they destroyed, and they escaped. 7 of the commando. 3 were caught, captured, and brought back, and they were hanging. They hung them, and we had to stay 24 hours. That was in Auschwitz. I'm coming back, and see them hang, and that was that. So I want to tell you that there was an uprising in Auschwitz proper.
Did that affect anything after that?
That was nothing to change. The routine went on, the same thing. People were killed and brought out to the gas chambers and cremated. But because of the 2 crematoria being destroyed, we didn't. The 3 remaining ones could not walk enough to burn the corpses from the gas chambers. So they did, ditches were there, and they had a sheet of wood and a sheet of corpse, and gasoline put over it and burned it. So all the day long we saw the fires and the smell of this burning thing. Not in the crematoria anymore because they couldn't consume as many bodies because there were 2 crematoria short.
Right.
Okay, so we are now in Ravensbrück, right? So again, there were people already alive, people, and from Ravensbrück again, there were too many inmates, I presume, and they put us again on railroad, trains, and we were taken to another place which wasn't actually a camp. There was made up to a camp. It was little bungalows, and nothing in there. The bungalow was empty, and floor, and there were 25 girls to a room. There was a straw and a blanket, and that's it. We were sitting there. And mostly there were the SS ladies there who took care of us, and they were very, very mean. They were screaming and beating us and not giving us any food sometimes. It was just terrible. So we were sitting on the floor, and we were thinking of what we would do if we were liberated. Although we all talked about it, that let that come already and make an end to it. It's enough, we cannot take it anymore. Because we didn't do anything, we're just sitting there.
Did that help you, like, go on, I guess, thinking about what you would do if you were liberated?
No, just, I don't know whether it helped, but from having nothing else to do, nothing to talk about, so we were talking about the food and dreaming that maybe we'll be able to sit in a chair with the legs under a table and have enough potatoes, enough bread. We didn't dream about steaks.
Right.
Potatoes and bread, that was the dream. And here my so-called, I called her my camp sister, she found on the grounds a manicure set, a little manicure set.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the barrack elders said to her, if you give me that manicure set, I'll give you an extra, I'll give you a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. So she gave it to her and to the loaf of bread. How can you afford to eat a whole loaf of bread? God forbid. So we cut it up in pieces and we sewed up a little bag which was made out of also blanket, a army blanket. And I carried this and once in a while give her a piece of bread and myself a piece of bread from that big
Just the two
loaf.
of you?
Yeah, from that loaf of bread. And I was carrying around this bread constantly with me. May 1st.
Do you wanna break here and switch?
Sure.
Just so we're even, because the tape might run the same.
Just so Sam can be in a hot seat.
And it's gonna,
Yeah,
it's gonna run out in a second.
Yeah.
Should be right actually. So May 1st, 1945, a group of inmates from Ravensbrück came running into the camp and said, what are you sitting around here? Look around you, the SS ladies have left. Let's go and break up the warehouses, because the Red Cross from Sweden had sent packages to the inmates. Of course we never received it, and see what we can get. So they went, and whoever had the strength yet to go, and indeed there was a lot of food there, and people started to eat uncontrollable. And some of them died from overeating, are left behind. Here also, remember I told you in Auschwitz before we went to the Frauen Konzentrationslager, when they came, we took out one woman. We met her here, in Malchow, and she was pregnant. Wow. I said, when you were so flabbergasted, not enough that she came, but she was pregnant and she came, she survived. What happened? She was very beautiful, she was a beautiful woman. And she told us that indeed she was on the table to have her fetus removed, and an order came to let her go on with the pregnancy. And she made that march while pregnant, and she came to Malchow. And here the SS ladies, would you believe it, gave us needles and yarn to make little things for the baby. That's how I learned how to knit. Really, this is how I learned how to knit. And she delivered. She had a little girl. And they were playing with her, and the same ones who were beating us and screaming us mercilessly, they were playing with a girl, and I mean, they were just like women should be when they see a baby. This little girl, of course, she survived, the mother survived, both survived. She became a doctor in Philadelphia. The mother already passed away since. And indeed, when the people came from other camps, as I said way first, they said, those SS ladies down here. And they broke off, and some of them ate themselves. And I with my camp sister did not have anything from the packages that they had brought in, because we all still have our bread. Unfortunately, I was carrying it in, as I say, in a warm bag. And when I opened it up, it was full, completely molded. And unfortunately, we had to throw away the bread that was cherishing so long, carrying it around, and not allowing ourselves to eat. I had to throw it away. And we were left with men, Hungarian collaborators. They had machine guns, but we didn't know that they have no ammunition in the machine guns. because they didn't trust them, I suppose. And they said, you know what, the Red Army is coming here. Let's get liberated by the Allies. Let's get a little bit deeper into Germany, and we'll be liberated by the Americans, French, and English. And so we marched out like idiots. We could have remained there, but it wasn't long enough, not that much longer. And we were, on the way we already saw broken up carriages and furniture, also German refugees, which made us feel good too. And they were also escaping from the Red Army, they wanted to be with the Allies. And we had the planes overhead and artillery fire. We came to a big forest. We went into the forest. And we saw from afar the ditches of potatoes that are present of planting for the coming season. And we threw ourselves on those potatoes like locusts, with the hands. We dug out the potatoes and ate them up. And whatever we could carry with us, we came into the forest with those potatoes. And our guards were gone. No more guards, nobody there to tell us when to go, how to go, and where to go. What shall we do? We were a group of 10 girls that we kept together. So we decided we'll stay in the forest and we'll go out in the morning, we'll see what's happening. And indeed we marched up to, it was a little town nearby a village. It was called Goldenberg. And we went in there was a barn. We came to the barn, knocked on the door, opened up, and there were already French POWs on their way home from the camps into France. I said, come on, girls, come on in, you'll see, it won't be long and we'll be liberated. And sure enough, on the morning, the Red Army came and liberated us. And when they saw us, they couldn't believe that Jewish girls had survived without collaborating. So here my Russian knowledge helped. And I spoke to the captain and I explained, look, as do we look like collaborators? We're shadows of people. I probably weighed 70 pounds when I was liberated. So he realized that he says, okay, you can go into the house and you can take whatever you can, food or clothing, whatever. And the German girl, the German hostess was very happy to have us rather than the Soviets. And she gave us anything we wanted. She didn't have much actually, but whatever she had, take it. And the first thing I did, I took off my dress. And my dress, I want to tell you, walked on its own, was so full of lies. Literally, put it out and it walked away. So I got some clothes from her, we washed ourselves, and then she says to go into another little building that was there and lock yourself. So we put a sign, typhus, so the soldiers would not attack us, trying to attack us. They didn't care. We were inmates in camps, we were girls, they came from the front. So we stayed overnight, I put a typhus to approach us, and in the morning the captain says, we're better off in the city nearby. So we went into the city again. The German woman was very happy to have us and took us in. And the girls started to go to the German houses in order to get some clothes and to get some food. And I was so dumb, that when I came to the house, so I said, excuse us, and would you please? So my mates said to me, you stay home, bring me the food. You're too nice for them. And indeed, I didn't go anymore, so they brought everything we shared. The 10 of us kept us together, we shared us. There were 4 of us from the same hometown, and 6 were from other towns that we kept together. The Soviets opened up soup kitchens, and without control, the Allies controlled the inmates. They gave them slowly the food, and not much to begin with, but not the Soviets, no control at all. You eat as much as you want and take whatever you want, and that was a killer. As a matter of fact, one of the girls from my hometown we had to leave behind. She died of overeating. And they wanted us to go with them, just to take us to the Soviet Union. We'll arrange for you to become members of the government farms and you'll become Soviet citizens. Oh, we knew already what Soviet Union is, what communist regime is, because we had them for 2 years. We said, no, thank you. We were free to do whatever we wanted to, and so we left and went over the other side of the railroad, and there was Neubrandenburg, a city Neubrandenburg. We came there again, no men were to be seen. A German woman took us in again, happy to see us rather than the soldiers. And we have to organize some food, because she didn't have much food. It was 3 of us and her. So we went in the street and talked what we can organize. So we were talking naturally Jewish, and 2 soldiers, Soviet soldiers, stopped us and says, we are Jews in the Soviet army. What can we do for you? I says, food. They organized us a whole lamb, 10 pounds of potatoes and 10 pounds of bread, and we consumed it in one sitting, and we survived it.
Wow.
And after we had those 10 pounds of potatoes, we used to say to our hostess, could you make us some French fried potatoes? And it was lucky for us, you know, that it didn't affect us. So then stayed there for, that was in May, we was liberated in July. The soldiers said to us that there's a train going to Poland via Bialystok. If you would like to go with them, you can take it, of course. So they organized, they gave us some clothes, we had big bags with clothes already there, they gave us some money in Poland. Poland was already a year after the liberation. Bialystok was liberated in 1944, in August of 1944. It was already a year later. And he says, go, we went, the three of us went, and the journey usually would take probably 12 hours. It took 3 weeks, but we made it. We came to Bialystok. And as I say, Bialystok was already liberated. And they said that the train will stay here for a whole week yet. So if you want to go deeper into the Soviet Union, you'll have the choice. So we went out, and somehow, I don't really remember how we organized a horse and wagon. We put all our belongings, and we came into the city. And the city was already organized. There was also a Jewish committee, and we went there, and we saw a lot of Jews already that came from different camps, from hiding in Bialystok proper, in non-Jewish homes that were in hiding, and they were liberated. So I tried to inquire. I didn't have any hope of other members of my family. The one that I mentioned was sent up to Siberia by the Soviets. I had hoped that maybe he had survived, not knowing that at the time there was a certain Madame Wasilewski. She organized a Polish division with the Red Army, and he was also in the division. And I met a neighbor of ours, and she told me, yes, your brother was here. He was one of the liberators. He was in the, and inquired about the family. Naturally, he found nobody. So he continued in the front, with the front. And then later on, from the Red Cross in Moscow, I found out that he was killed in the front. So people already, as I say, having combs and walking already. So one of our girls found a cousin that was there. She was liberated from Prussia earlier. She was living already in a house, so it was one big room. That was that was her condo, so to speak. It was one big room and a little kitchen, and there were 3 of them and 3 of us, and we settled there together. And I said, we have to do something, we have to start walking, get some bread, or some food, some clothing. So I got, because as I said, I was already then an accomplished secretary, because I with the Germans, and I got a job with the government, and I worked as the private secretary of my boss. And I'm going to tell you, it was already late 1945, beginning of 1946, and he was to go to a little town outside of the city. And of course I took it for granted that I had to go with him to take notes and so forth. He says, no, don't go, because it's not safe yet for Jews to go in those little towns. Because I don't know whether you're familiar with, in 1946, there was a pogrom, a cancer pogrom. There's a group of Jews that came from the camps and from hiding, and were settled in one house, and they were all killed in that house by the Poles. So he didn't take me, but I walked in this, and then my camp sister and her cousins decided to leave Poland, and they went to Germany in order to go to Palestine via Germany, And so I took in some more people that came from the camps, I took them in. And at one point, this house was to be demolished because it was wasn't very safe to stay there. So I had to look for another place to stay. So my oldest brother had a house, and the house was standing on the main street. But it was occupied by people living there from the little towns they came into Bialystok. Again, it wasn't safe for Jews in the little towns. And I came up to the town and I said, I don't want you to leave, but I would like to have a room here, because the house belongs to my brother. But there was no problem, and they took me in, and the woman with her daughter, with her niece, that stayed with me, and we took that. And here I met my husband. Somebody wanted to ask me how I met my husband. Somebody wanted to know this time, right? But this is when I met my husband, and I shouldn't talk anymore, should I? Because
No,
this is only
yeah,
after
it's
deliberation. Right?
Deliberation stuff, I think.
Okay.
I just have a couple of questions about, you mentioned a pregnant woman, your friend was pregnant with a kid, so I guess there were actually some free time.
No,
When-
she came pregnant.
Oh, she
She came
ended
pregnant.
up
She didn't
pregnant
know.
before.
We counted
Mhm.
out, that she became pregnant in Brižin.
Uh-huh,
They also were separated, but we still had contact. If you
Yeah.
wanted, her husband was there, so they
Mhm.
had contact, and she conceived evidently there. But you see, we didn't know whether we were pregnant or not because we didn't
Yeah.
menstruate. Nothing happened to
Mhm.
her, so we didn't know. She didn't know herself actually
Yeah.
until Bengele took her out. Yes, but there was no contact with men whatsoever. The time when men would come, let's say, to repair the barracks or something, we had to go out.
uh-huh. When you were a little, like, how old were you when you first,
I was 16
you were
when the war
16
broke,
when it started, okay.
in 39.
So
right.
you were kind of more mature, you
I
weren't,
was already 20
yeah, so you
in
were,
1943.
uh-huh.
Right.
When the Germans first began to occupy Poland, were you and the rest of your family aware of what their views were gonna be, like what was in store for you, even though they were just starting to set up ghettos and that was
The
it?
thing is that we knew what the Germans are doing
Mhm.
because for 2 years already occupied western part of
Yeah.
Poland. And there were refugees coming and telling us what was going on. But as I said before, we did not believe that it will happen to the Jews in Bialystok.
Uh-huh.
We are productive Jews.
Mhm.
This is, that attitude will happen to me, it happens to somebody else.
Yeah.
And this was the mentality. We could have chances to also go into the villages and be hidden by the peasants for bringing some clothing or bringing some food with them, they would keep us.
Uh-huh.
But, it will happen to us, we are productive Jews,
Mhm.
Nutzlichen Juden.
Uh-huh.
So, that's what it was, so, but, we knew what was happening. But as far as the concentration camps, we learned later
Uh-huh.
on. But we knew that they are set out to annihilate the Jews, but not us. It was always not us.
So then, when the Germans did end up taking you, did they make any excuses, or did they just tell you,
Nothing,
You're
they were
coming.
screaming.
uh-huh,
They didn't tell anything, there was no telling,
it
it was
was
screaming.
just,
Screaming
come
and yelling and, and using some weapons, whatever, to fest. Everything had to be schnell, 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 fest,
Uh-huh.
fest, fest. Everything has to be raus, schnell, fest. Everything had to be very fast, tempo. Like they were afraid, they'll be late to
Mhm.
take us out, I don't know. But everything was just fast.
while you were in the camps, did you or anyone that you were friendly with or know try to maintain any sort of Jewish identity?
Yes, we
Okay.
did. We did. In late 44, there came a transport from Hungary.
Uh-huh.
Of course, as I said, we don't know what day it is,
Yeah.
whether it's Monday or Sunday or whatever. But in 44, there came a transport from Hungary, and they told us that a week from now will be Yom Kippur, the day of atonement,
Mhm.
most holy day in
Yeah.
Jewish religion. And some of us, including myself, deprived ourselves of even a piece of bread and a little bit of soup, so we fasted the day.
Uh-huh.
Not all of us, naturally.
Yeah.
Some did. And we didn't eat that day.
Mhm. So you tried to,
And there was always, I don't know what it was, the people who say that they are indoctrinated or
Uh-huh.
brainwashed, that's why you're doing it. But the thing is that some of us, I would say maybe the majority, lost faith in God.
uh-huh,
As you know, Elie Wiesel said, God died in Auschwitz.
yeah,
But I never did because I was brought up in a semi-Orthodox family,
Mhm.
Jewish family. And I learned something about the Bible and so forth. And I knew that Jews had a choice.
Yeah.
Not Jews, people have a choice. It says in our prayers that the heavens are made for God and the earth is made for people. And people have a choice. If they have the good or to be bad. Don't blame God for it. If you want to be bad, it's you.
Mhm.
God didn't make you that way. You had
Yeah.
a choice. If you made a bad choice, then you
Yeah.
blame you. So I never ever blamed God. So much so that, you know, I was even at times grateful to God that my parents didn't have to go through what I'm going through. I knew the end would be the same, but they already didn't suffer. I was suffering 2 years
Yeah.
later. So it was something that God had done to my parents. They were good and took them away.
So your family was big, right? Like somewhat big. I mean, you have
Well,
aunts
we
and
can say,
uncles.
We were 5 children.
Uh huh.
4 of them were married and had children of their
Yeah.
own and their parents. Of course, I had aunts and cousins. Nobody survived.
No one.
Nobody.
Did you ever, while you were in the camps or anything, learn of what was going on with your family? Like, did you have contact with them at all, or?
Well, as I told you before, I found out that my immediate
Yeah.
family was taken out and they perished. No, I had no. I didn't even know that I have any relatives outside of Poland, outside of Europe.
Uh-huh.
After the liberation, somehow it came to me that I had an uncle in Israel.
Yeah.
And I remembered his address too. So I wrote to him.
Uh-huh.
And indeed, I had an uncle there. And he sent me a visa to go to Israel. In the meantime, I got married and changed my name, so I couldn't utilize the visa. And my husband wanted to go to the States. He didn't want to go to Palestine at the time, you know. And so I was very, very upset that I will not go to Israel, number one. And secondly, that I won't see the only member of my family, my uncle, whom I knew, because he left in 36, so I remembered him. So I wrote to my uncle that I'm going to America and I'm very unhappy because I have nobody in America and my husband wants to go there. And there's a saying, you go with your husband everywhere. So he says, don't worry, my child, you have an aunt in America. And I found out that I had an aunt in America. Of course, she left in 1905,
Yeah.
when the first revolution took place. She was one of the leftists. So the family never mentioned her name, you know. So it was taboo to even talk about her. I never knew that she existed. So my uncle, that was his sister. So she says, yes, she left and he told me the whole story, that she was lefty, she was a member of the Communist Party, that's where she left, she ran away, and all that, and she was in America. And my aunt, should rest in peace, she never changed her views. So she never became a citizen of America. She was one of the first ones to organize the strikes when the unions, and all that. So she wanted so badly to see her brother in Israel. She could go, but she wouldn't be able to come back.
Yeah.
So she never left the United States. She never became a citizen. So when I came to the United States, I had an aunt. But of course, she passed away already since. And I was in Israel several times. I still had met my uncle, who was still alive when I went to Israel, and he had a daughter, so I met her cousin. They're all gone, unfortunately.
What about friends from Białystok? Did they end up going with you, or were you all?
Some of them, yes, some of them went all the way with me.
Uh-huh.
You know, she told you, a classmate of mine.
Yeah.
And then after the liberation, but she also returned to Białystok. Many of us returned with hope, against hope that maybe somebody survived, you know. And yeah, we were in contact. I'll tell you, when I got married in February of 1946, there were 300 Jews survivors in the city of Białystok. All 300 were at my wedding. It wasn't an elaborate wedding like here, but all 300 were at my wedding. And you know what? We had to lock our doors because the Poles were knocking. They wanted to come in,
Yeah.
and they wanted to do some harm. So we had some partisans with us too, and they had ammunition. They had weapons, so they protected us. But and people who came already from Russia too. People who were evacuated to the Soviet Union came back too also. So it was 300 Jews. They were all at my wedding. Many of them, of course, I knew from before the war.
Yeah.
Some of them I knew from the camps, also Białystok. So we kept in contact for a long, long while. When I went to Israel, I met them. They were in Israel too. So we met them again. It was, and you know what? Talking about going to Israel, that Mr. Busse, I have to tell you that after the ghetto was liquidated, he went to the ghetto. He knew my address, he knew where I lived. And being a Nazi member, he was allowed to go. And he went in there and he came to the house and he found a little picture of me and picked up 3 pieces of silverware. He took it with him. 2 girls that knew what kind of a man he was, as the ghetto was liquidated, went to him. One of them was like, you know, a link between the different ghettos. She looked like a non-Jew, so she could do that. She went to him and told him that she's a friend of ours, you know, what kind of, could he help them? He took those 2 girls into his house. He built a double wall, he kept them in there. His wife and son left him. They didn't want to risk their lives, which I can blame them for.
Yeah.
And he remained in Bialystok, still working, and kept those 2 girls inside him. They had a contact with the partisans. Again, he would tell them what's going on, and she would in turn tell the partisans. He gave them weapons when he could organize this for the partisans. And when Bialystok was to be liberated by the Soviet Union, they said he's gone, he's leaving. I said, why don't you leave? We'll tell him who you are, you know, you might get even a medal. He said, by the time you'll explain to the Soviets who I am, we'll all be killed. And he went back to Prussia. He was drafted in the siege of Königsberg, which was the capital of Prussia. And he was captured, and he was in a PW camp in the Soviet Union. He was liberated in 1956, so many years later. And he tried to find me. And through the Red Cross, into the organization of survivors in Israel, he did find out that I'm another name and I'm in America. And he got in touch with me. And he through, again, the woman, remember, who wanted to give me some saccharin to sweeten my life, she left Prussia and went to East Berlin, also away from the Soviets. And he gave her those 3 pieces of silver when he was drafted. I says, maybe if you come back, you'll have something. Because sure enough, he contacted me with her. Did I show you the silverware? I had somebody else.
Do you want to wait next time?
It's okay.
That's fine.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
It's okay. I was just gonna.
Yeah.
While you were in the camps, you had, I mean, you worked a lot, but did you ever have any free time? No?
Every time we were had, we were made to kneel outside, you know, we couldn't go into the barrack because it was dark. And then we were so grateful to put ourselves, our bodies already on the beam and fall asleep if possible, you know. Yeah, very often you come out, you know, your neighbor next to you was dead. So, free time, no.
So you ended up getting weaker every day, more or less?
True, true, very true. Very big. I was never a big person.
Yeah.
I got thinner and thinner, you know, just, as I said, in Malchow, when we were in the last place, you know, it was the block, a barrack elder, she was just a Stubman, it was just one room. She says to me, tell me, Bluma, what did you look like in real life? She just couldn't imagine what I looked like in real life.
I think when we were talking before, you said you were not a very big person. Like when you lived in Poland before everything happened. Did you ever interact with many of the inmates or anything? Like, I mean, you became friendly with some.
Yes, that's right.
But did you ever interact with like groups of inmates?
No, really not.
Okay.
Everybody had their own little clique.
Yeah.
And you were stayed close with them. I don't know, it was the mentality that we don't get too close because you don't know what's going to happen, you know, you might lose them. So maybe that was the reason, but I was very close with this, as I told you, but I called him, we called ourselves sisters, you know, and it's also a story with her too. But no, everybody had their own 1 or 2 or 3 that they kept together, mostly from their hometown, you know. Although in Malchow I befriended very much 2 Hungarian girls because we were laying side by side on the floor and we had gotten the bread for the 4 of us, myself, my sister, and those 2 Hungarian girls, and we had to share the bread, you know, so we got very close. And you would believe that in 1951 we had a grocery store here in Baltimore, and who walked in but one of the Hungarian girls.
Wow.
And I recognized her too. I said, Ilanka!
That's
Yes.
amazing.
And she, by the way, she had told me that the Jewish girl, there was such a mean person to us in the first in quarantine, They found her in Frankfurt am Main in Germany, and they beat her up, and they went to the authorities and told them what she had done, and she was arrested. Wow. Sally.
They gave you the straw and the army blankets to sleep on?
Yes, a bag of straw, yeah. Not everybody got it either.
Yeah, so you were lucky.
Privileged. They had it.
Were there any other ways that you kept warm? I mean, you talked about how
No.
your friend or the doctor or whatever
Yes.
would throw the pants over
Right.
the fence, but they didn't give you
No, the
pants?
time you got your clothes, but as I said, you had to whatever you could
Yeah.
catch fast. And they didn't care about having special warm clothes. We warmed ourselves with one another,
Yeah.
you know. We were sticking close to one another to warm ourselves. And it's funny, I don't remember being cold or hungry. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I really don't remember that I was complaining about being cold or being hungry. No, I just don't know. There's a saying, you shouldn't be proof that you can get used to.
Yeah.
And we should have gotten used to that kind of life.
I guess the
Call
body
it
just,
life, yeah. Existence.
yeah. How many people lived in each barrack or whatever, like house? Or,
I approximately, I would say about 300.
so they would just stuff a whole bunch of people
Oh yeah,
in?
oh yeah. But they were always even decimated because
Yeah.
they died and they were killed or they got to the, and new ones wouldn't come into the same barrack. So when another transport came, another barrack was occupied with them. I would say about 200 or 300, I really don't know exactly.
What were the sleeping conditions like with that many people?
Well, we were all dead tired by the
Mhm.
time we got into the bunks. So you just fell asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as I say, your next day, when you touched him in your sleep and he felt cold. He was dead already.
I remember.
And sometimes we had, in Auschwitz, we didn't have rats because there was nothing to eat for them. But in Blishin, in the first one, we had the rats crawling all over us.
And then when we were talking with Steve, the doctor that's
Yes.
working with us, he said that someone told him a story about when they all wanted to roll over, or when one person wanted to roll over, the whole group would have
That's
to roll
right,
over
because
at
we
the
were so
same time.
close. Yes, we were so close situated, as I said, so many people in the
Yeah.
barracks. So everybody had to turn.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
So you kind of work
But
together.
this is, you woke up, or you fell asleep again because you were so exhausted.
Yeah. It
That's
must-
the only time that you could really stop thinking.
Mhm.
So it was when you fell asleep.
Kind of a getaway.
Sort of escape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
escape from the day.
From the reality of our daily life.
What language did you mostly speak there?
In the
In the
in the
camps and
camps?
ghettos?
mostly Jewish.
Mostly Jewish.
Yeah, mostly Jewish.
There wasn't like.
We also spoke a lot of Polish,
Mhm.
but mostly we spoke Jewish.
They didn't put restrictions on like
No.
what languages you could
No,
speak
no.
or.
No, there was no control about that. No. Hello?
I just have a few more questions. Did you ever sing songs
Yes.
or anything?
Yes, we did.
No.
When we walked in
Mhm.
the barracks, we were singing songs. And and we were sitting outside, let's say, in the quarantine.
Yeah.
And so we sang songs. We did.
While you were in the camps, were you aware of what was going on outside? Like the progress of the war that was going on in Europe?
We sensed it.
Mhm.
If the restrictions were stronger,
Yeah.
or we were limited in certain things, that the front is coming closer.
Uh-huh.
And again, transports came after we were there.
Yeah.
And they came from the wall, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
So they would tell us that the war is about to finish, they're so far, they're here, they're already there. Yes, we did. And of course, when they said the Auschwitz was to be liquidated, we knew that the
Uh-huh.
war is almost over for Auschwitz, But the fear that it will be destroyed together with us went until it was that much. after the liberation, I met some people who remained in Auschwitz, you know, and they were liberated already, you know, in January of 1945, almost half a year later.
Yeah. So it kind of gave you a
Little hope, yeah.
like, you would hear
Yeah.
rumors that
Rumors, yeah, we
the
did hear
Allies
that.
and the Russians were
Right.
coming.
Yeah, but this assessment were very strict,
Mhm.
stricter than the war before, or more meaner than the war before. Then we knew that something's wrong on the front.
Were you also aware of like current events going on?
No.
And so like when
As I
Hitler killed himself, you never. I remember it was like rumored that Hitler shot himself.
No, we never knew that. We
you
knew
never-
there was an attempt on his life. I
Uh-huh.
found it out later.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't know anything was going on. No. I didn't anyway, as a matter of fact, did, but I didn't. And you know, we really didn't care about it.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much all I have. Oh, I was looking up on the internet, and it said something about the Bialystok ghetto uprising in 1943.
Yes.
You were still in Bialystok during
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
What was that all about?
I told you about it.
Oh, that's what you were talking about
Yes,
before.
that
Okay.
was the uprising that took place in
Uh-huh.
Belgium.
Yes, that's right.
And many of my classmates
Yeah.
perished in that uprising.
Okay. I think. Did you ever, while you were in the camps, were you ever able to get any little, like, I mean, you talked about the bread that lady gave you and you put it all into a little sack and cut it up to pieces. Did you ever get anything like that from anywhere else? Like, were you ever able to get like a little piece of chocolate or ever make matzah or
You
anything
didn't
like that?
dream
No?
about chocolate,
No.
getting it.
Uh-huh.
No,
Even when you were like going out into the towns and everything?
we didn't.
You
We were
didn't?
always under control.
Uh-huh.
We had no contact. We shouldn't have any contact. But the only time that, as I say, we saw the civilian Germans,
Yeah.
when we go from Grossrosen to Ravensbrück, and they threw something to
Yeah.
us. But no, God forbid, no, nothing.
And then I think that's it.
Okay.
Is there any other memories or anything that stand out particularly in your mind?
No, I think I covered it.
Everything? Okay.
Maybe when it'll leave, I'll remember something. You know,
Okay.
I have another question if you don't mind me chiming in.
not at all.
I'm interested to know what kinds of examples you would have, if any, of inmates, Jewish inmates and other inmates trying to like maintain humanization while they're in the camps, because
Yes.
obviously a lot of what the Nazis did was try to like make you
You
feel
humanize
like
us, you're right.
you were dogs and not
Right.
humans. So
Yes.
what did anything go on to make you?
Yes, I tell you, we supported each other. There was a case where the woman kept on saying she has a big heart that she can take, you know, she's going to die. So we talked to her and embraced her and kept her warm, you know, among ourselves, and gave her hope, the hope that we didn't have ourselves. But we tried to give her hope, you'll survive, you'll see you'll survive, because in bad times you get stronger and so forth and so on. There was a tremendous support between the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, for instance, let's say if somebody had died and left a piece of bread,
Uh-huh.
we shared it. It wasn't one that took it. That was in my barrack. I don't know where it was all over the same story, but this is what it was, you know. We tried to support each other very much.
Okay. That answers my question.
You know, while I was sort of adopted by the doctors, you know, so from time to time he would get from the assessment also some bread or some soup or some vegetables to make a soup, and I would cook the soup on the hospital stove, you know, and we would share that with everybody who was able still to eat, you know. And there was a girl when I was sick, and she tried to smuggle in some pieces of bread that she had baked on the reverse side of the arm at night, risking her life doing it, you know. Somehow the people were walking outside in Brigitte, they were walking outside in a quarry, and they somehow got a contact there with the non-Jewish population, and somehow they got some flour, smuggled it into the barrack. at night, when she was working on the night shift, she would mix the flour with some water and bake it on the reverse side of the iron and smuggled it into the hospital to me. She didn't know my name, but was sitting at the same table showing, and so this is what I want to tell you,
Yeah.
a tremendous support. By risking the life, like the doctor who risks his life, in order to help me. So it was a camaraderie in that respect, supporting each other mentally. Physically, there wasn't much we could do, but mentally we tried to support it. And the songs they were singing, that also kept us up,
I just had one question. When you were in the camps, I know you dealt with the SS, and you had the female. I don't know what the exact title would be, but the
SS
female
ladies.
SS ladies. Okay.
And the
Well,
elder,
okay.
the person that wasn't an SS,
Right.
the
Jewish.
girl that took.
Oh, the
Well, I'm not.
Marxists.
I was just
So
interested.
she's talking SS.
Right, I was just interested in what the differences were in terms of how they treat. I've read different things. I always had the sense it was a slight difference. I don't know in terms of because if a woman was treating a woman differently versus the men who just didn't
Well,
understand.
we felt that SS girls were much worse than the men. Sometimes you had the impression that the men were doing what they were told to do, and the girls were doing because they wanted to do. Most of them were undereducated, came from very backwards families. They could hardly speak a correct German. The SS ladies I'm talking about. And that was they gave them power. It gave them power to belittle us, to treat us not like human beings, not like dogs. She says dogs. No, dogs were treated very well. Not once did it, I wish I was a dog. Dogs were treated very well by the Germans, but like crawling insects that would step on us, which they did, kicked without a reason, Although, as I said before, there was one who didn't, who corrected the inmate, a Jewish inmate. But that was a rare occasion. It was always, later on, of course, I found out it was, I had to tell it to somebody, that there was, you girls had a lot of Germans. And one of the assessmen, one of the guards in Auschwitz, came from Bialystok, and he recognized an inmate, a man. I was found out about it later, and he gave him a little bit of bread, treated him a little better than anybody else. So there were such occasions, but unfortunately very few and far apart.
Did you see instances where and you just gave me an instance of someone who recognized someone else even though it was a German Jew, but did you see instances where I don't know if there was hearsay or whatever, but these people knew these, maybe some German knew these other Jews and it didn't make a difference, whether or not, just because they knew each other before the war.
No, some of
And
them
all of a
wouldn't
sudden-
acknowledge that they knew it.
All of a sudden
Some
it
of them
didn't
would
make a
not acknowledge
difference.
even, that they know the woman. Although it could be that
In terms of
the inmate, recognized the man, but he wouldn't say that. And the German would not admit that he knows him, It depends upon the individual, That's why I say you cannot generalize those things. Depends. And they felt, there were people who were deprived of everything else that was good in life, in normal life. And here, all of a sudden, they were so powerful. They could do anything they pleased with the inmates. And they did. Some of them took advantage of it. Some, the majority did.
And also, just to expand on that, did you see any instances when, I understand if the German, if this German SS didn't follow orders, obviously things would happen, but in terms of whether, when they weren't being watched, whether they were maybe struggling with themselves or, tried in some way, because maybe they couldn't stand it anymore, and at some point, because they themselves, like an inmate, they would, say enough already or something.
You became human for a minute.
I'm just, maybe that's
but
not possible.
I haven't seen that. Maybe it was, but I haven't seen
it's not really.
I didn't come across anything like that, no. I didn't see any human deeds, except when the baby was born in Malachov, And the SS ladies made us make clothes for them. But by the same token, they they beat us, they screamed at us and treat us like dirt. But the baby, they find some human instincts were in them.
You were in a camp called Malchow? Or
Malchow.
Malchow?
Yeah,
Okay.
you would say Malchow, yeah,
Yeah.
with a CH.
That was a factory, wasn't it? For,
There was nothing, we didn't do anything there.
oh, okay, because I read on the internet that it was a factory for building weapons for the military or something, and they made,
It was maybe before we
Uh-huh.
came, because we came already in May,
yeah,
was the end of the war. We did nothing there, we were just sitting and literally waiting for death to liberate us, because we really didn't believe anymore that we'll be liberated.
so you didn't have to work in.
No, we didn't work, it was
you
worse
just
yet.
sat.
The sitting there
Uh-huh.
not working was worse yet.
Okay.
And you said that sometimes a person would reach over next to the person next to them when they were sleeping, and they were cold and you knew that they had already died. Did that happen to you?
No,
You got quiet and I thought maybe.
no, it didn't. Didn't have that experience, no. The only death that I really witnessed was when this adopted mother of mine died, because I was at her bedside when she died. There was another man, he was also from Bialystok, and he was the administrator of the Jewish hospital. He was a big man, a healthy man, and also felt the first one to go, as far as men are concerned. He was screaming, it was in high fever, he was screaming bloody murder, and then it was quiet. So he, Knyazhev, that's what he would ask me before I would know, but the name came to me. Yeah, and his wife was liberated in Auschwitz. She remained, she was in the hospital, she couldn't walk, so she remained and she was liberated. And I met her later on when I came back to hometown.
Okay, just one more, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, it just occurred to me, and I don't know, I mean, if you don't know, I don't, but you mentioned about Mengele in Auschwitz, the doctor in Auschwitz.
Mengele,
Mengele, right. I mean, did you hear anything from other inmates or just hearsay, I mean, in terms of, like, details in terms of what he did?
oh yes, I just told you about the girl who was
You would say that they would take them and they would just never come back. I mean, in
well,
terms
but he wasn't the one who did anything, he just picked them out. And he has a whole staff of doctors who performed all the atrocities on all the experiments, under his supervision.
Yeah.
But again, the same story, nobody looked at him to recognize his face.
Mhm.
But it was enough that somebody said, Mengele is coming. That was it. You try to close your eyes, not look at him, hide behind something or somebody, not to look at him. And this girl, she didn't see him, but she knew the order came not to remove the fetus, the one that gave birth in Marco. People whom Mengele took out very rarely survived, unless they were experimented upon. And there was a big going on with experiments. There was the barracks of the dolls. I didn't tell you about it.
I don't think so, I've heard about it, but.
Oh, did he speak to some? Anyway, it was a barrack of the dolls in Auschwitz proper. And Mengele took out those girls when they first came to Auschwitz, nice and fresh and beautiful, and put them in a barrack in Auschwitz proper for the use of the German soldiers. And they got chocolate. Because I met one of the girls after the war, and she came to Bialystok. Because she never talked about it, but here and there she would drop something.
That was in.
In Auschwitz proper.
There was another one that you were in, I don't know how to pronounce it,
Ravensbrück.
That was also, didn't they do a lot of experimenting?
Yes, that was the same thing as Auschwitz.
Uh-huh.
Same kind of camp. But also, when we came there, it was quieted down because there had so many inmates from different camps coming there, and the fear of the front coming. So they quieted down.
Right. Did you ever know anybody that ended up being a victim of the experiments or anything?
I just told you about the girl.
Did you?
That was the one.
That was the only one?
The only one. No, I also met a half of twins
Uh-huh.
that were experimenting about.
Yeah.
But her twin died. One of them survived.
Was there something like when Mangala would come and he would, pick someone out, people wouldn't look, but was there something, he just pick out a random person, or was there something?
Random.
It didn't matter, like if there was something like, if you didn't look at him, it didn't,
No,
there was
he would-
nothing.
He knew that. He was a very smart person. But he knew that the ones in the back are hiding from him, so sometimes he would take him out from the back too.
It didn't matter whether you were male or female, your
No,
age.
no, female only.
Oh,
We had no
female.
contact with the man. We don't know
Oh,
what
you
was
don't- you
going on
didn't-
in the man.
Right, I
It's all
understand.
separated, you know.
Right.
But he would take sometimes the tall one, sometimes the little one, sometimes the blonde, sometimes the brunettes. There was no rule. Whatever his whim was at the moment. Unless there was a whole transport like it happened with the gypsies. You know, there came a transport from the island of Rhodes. Young, beautiful girls in high heels and gorgeously dressed with beautiful luggage, you know. They came in camp and dancing and singing. And the whole transport went to the crematorium. They didn't know what was going on. They said, you're going to a camp, you know, like a vacation or something. They didn't realize, they didn't know what was going on. And they went all to the crematorium.
They had the barracks of the dolls, and after, when you were going, as the war was ending, and you put the sign up for typhus so that the soldiers would leave you alone. Was that a common fear? Was that a common thing that happened
Yeah.
to me?
Attacking the girls, yeah. By front soldiers.
But I mean, even in the camp.
No. I haven't heard of anybody being raped by assessment, no. Unless they were go to Dallas here. She provided them with this years. No, I haven't heard of anybody being raped, no. I really, not even, you know, in Belizean, it was easy to attack a girl, you know. But I haven't heard of any. They were so indoctrinated that whoever had contact or sexual contact with a Jewish girl would be killed. It was a question of race, you know. So I haven't heard of it. It could have happened, you know, in the ghettos at work. It could have happened there, but not in the camps, not that I'm aware of.
I guess if there's no other questions or is there anything else you want to add or anything that you?
As I said, maybe
Uh-huh.
when you leave from
Yeah.
usually they say, oh, I should have told him about this or that. You know.
Well, thank
If
you.
there's any question that you have, feel free to call.
I'm sure it won't pop in my head when I go to sleep.
Yes, I'm so sorry, right? I should have asked
Do you
for
have
that.
email? Do you have email?
No.